Which one's working here? Oh, cool.
Hello?
Hello, Jane. It's Patrick again. I think I got it this time.
Okay, let's do it then.
All right, let's go right into it. Last week we had a discussion. We were talking about the pig farms in Iowa. Could you please go over that information again?
We have over 30 million pigs being raised in Iowa right now, and they have proven that being exposed to that much hog excrement can change people's ability to think well. It disturbs their mental state as well as their physical state. It ruins your water table. It ruins your lakes and streams and ponds. And these hogs are here because of Iowa Select and Smithfield Farms, which are owned by or directed by the Chinese. Right now, Iowa and most of the United States is being colonized by the Chinese. Now, I realize the Chinese have a lot of people. China has a lot of people, and they really love pork. But the health of the people in Iowa is being sacrificed to those farmers who want to make money off the Chinese. We are now called a sacrifice zone.
A sacrifice zone.
Big Ag is willing to sacrifice the land, the air, and the water in Iowa to the needs of the farmers who want to get wealthy off pork. And that's what they're doing. And right now in Mitchell County, you are not allowed to protest in front of a hog confinement because it would disturb the hogs, and you don't have that right anymore. And you can be fined for doing it.
And if you
could
don't
be arrested.
Yes,
we have lost our right to freedom of speech in Iowa. I think people need to realize what's going on here. This isn't just some fanatic old lady talking about this. This is the Des Moines Register published a long column, and has several, about what is happening to the soil in Iowa because they have to have a place to put all this hog excrement, so they fill it into the soil. Well, unfortunately, where I am, we're sitting on limestone. Limestone allows that excrement and all those antibiotics that are in that excrement because of what they do to the hogs. All that goes down through that limestone into the water. And yeah, we could end up with horrible MRSA problems in the state of Iowa because that comes to you from hogs.
Right.
This is a really dangerous situation that we have created. Governor Terry Branstad, we call him Brain Dead for a good reason, but he started this whole thing by saying you can have as many animal confinements set up as you want to. In the state of Iowa, this is an agricultural state. And Big Ag is ruining this state for people to live in.
Right.
People are moving away from here because if you live next to one of these huge hog confinements, your health is going to suffer, and we already know that.
So it's a health issue. It's also probably obviously a state
it's
sustainability.
An environmental issue.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
An environmental issue. It's a health issue, but it's an economic issue for these farmers because they're making boo-hoo bucks off this. But they don't have with my health or your health, and the people who suffer the most from being exposed to this stuff that comes from these hog confinements are little children and the old and anybody with any kind of breathing problem.
Oh.
Yeah. There are farmers right now. There are people living next door to farms who cannot have their windows open in their houses because of the smell and the ugliness that has been created by these hog confinements.
Well, because they're actually breathing in fecal material, on a microscopic
Absolutely.
level.
When you breathe in that odor, you're breathing in teeny tiny microscopic pieces of hog excrement into your lungs. And I didn't realize until I read today this article about the antibiotics that they put in this hog feed that goes into these hogs and then goes into the environment. And we are now we're building up resistance to antibiotics. And many of these antibiotics are also used on humans. If you build up a resistance to them, when you get a problem that needs to be treated and could be solved with antibiotics, forget that.
Yeah, because it's immune now. It's already mutated.
Yeah, well, you are resistant to it. You don't have to. The whole thing is absolutely diabolical.
Now, I wonder, do you have any information about the Chinese? Are they getting a tax break in addition to basically, all the call consignments they can basically fund?
You have to contact Terry Branstad, and he's now our United States ambassador to China.
And ask him the hard question.
Now, if you think that none of this is related, you need to take a look. I'm beginning to find out how it must have felt for the Native Americans who were here when we white folks colonized this country. Now this country is being colonized by the Chinese.
Right, and no one's saying a word about it because there's also
we don't.
Nestle.
We don't talk about it, and we are being told not to talk. Right in Iowa, you aren't allowed to talk about it because Big Ag runs this state. North Carolina's in the same situation. North Carolina has had this problem long before Iowa got it. I don't know why I guess they ran out of space in North Carolina and moved it to Iowa. Iowa farmers like to make money, and they should make money.
Right.
But just shouldn't be allowed to make money by destroying somebody else's environment, their land, their air, and their water, and their health.
Right. I mean, the last time you was on, you told us a story about the creek behind your house. Your babies used to play in it when they were younger. But now that, everyone's gotten older, even a dog will not jump in the water because
Dogs
it can
will
smell.
not jump in that water anymore. And it is a spring-fed creek. And you can go down to that creek and look where the spring water is coming in. It's as clear and beautiful as can be. And it flows into that creek, and it flows into orange, brown, greenish sludge. It's just awful. It's just unbelievable.
And no one's talking.
I would never have believed that you could have this big a change in this environment in 10 years.
Well, you know what it is. It goes back to, you said something about, the Indians' land being taken from them by the white man. But if you really think about it, because that was basically stolen, no wonder the people who are in control of the land now have no regards for the people on the land right now. Because in their minds, they already know this whole place is somewhat fraudulent. Broken treaties, broken dreams. That's how...
Well, but it's more than that now. Now it is, we have now turned this beautiful land of Iowa into a sacrifice zone.
Yes.
And people are leaving because they can't breathe. If your house is next door to a hog consignment, you might as well sell it because your land value, the value of your property will drop from 20 to 40% as a result of being next to a hog consignment.
That is huge.
That makes me angry. That makes me really angry. We live in an old church, an old schoolhouse out in the country, 6 miles from town. There are 4 hog consignments within 2 miles of this house.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's just on the southern end. There are 2 more on the eastern side, about 2 miles away.
Well, now that one shouldn't be bad because the wind blows to the east, but the ones...
Well, that depends. Well, that depends on whether Mr. Trump is in residence.
Trumpity lumpity. Oh yes, our dear president. You so I take it you heard that he's pulling out the Iran deal to try to.
Oh yeah, and I watched that announcement that he made today, and once again he proved that he cannot even read the notes that are written for him, and he doesn't really know what he's talking about, and he doesn't really have a good plan. He doesn't have a plan. He knows how to make an announcement. He knows how to say, "You're fired."
Yes.
He knows how to do something that only takes half an hour or an hour out of his day. And the rest, he knows nothing about what he's doing. He is absolutely ignorant about governing.
To the extreme. And the sad thing about it, we get the government we deserve. By having this man in the White House,
we don't. We don't. We don't get the government we deserve. We get the government that is forced upon us by the people who have the money to make the legislators write the laws they want written.
That is true. That is very true.
This is not about what we deserve. This is about what people, who run the show, and that's the people who have money. It has nothing to do with what we deserve.
Yeah, but
and this last election proved that, because Hillary Clinton, whom I didn't want to be president, so I held my nose and voted for her, but she won that election. But because of the Electoral College,
right,
and people who didn't know what the Electoral College was put into the Constitution for, voted in a way that they shouldn't have. That Electoral College was supposed to prevent anyone who was unfit for that job from getting it.
Well, it
and
failed.
those people who voted in those 4 states electoral college members put us in the situation we're in.
Exactly. But in all fairness, though, Trump is, apparently, as far as the nation of Israel is concerned, Trump has been a golden angel. They're about ready to rename a plaza after
and
him.
He should go soon. He should go soon then if he wants to be an angel.
I didn't mean
I would recommend him for angelhood soon.
soon. Oh, Lord have mercy.
No, Lord isn't going to have mercy here. That's another thing. I think it's not going to happen. The Lord isn't having mercy right now. So I think the Lord is saying, you got stuck with him, now fix it, folks.
Oh, my God. I have another, Jane, right now. My main feed on YouTube is saying reconnect after we had just said that, and my whole phone is so scrambled up. But I got another video off the internet running right now, so we can still continue this. Oh, see, now I'm back. Oh, that was weird. That was so weird. Okay.
Yeah, weird things happen where I am all the time. Don't be surprised.
Well, you know what it is, unfortunately, or fortunately for us, you speak a lot of truth. You say a lot of very uncomfortable things I try to cupcake over. You take out like that Gallagher hammer and smash down the truth on it. And like,
you can make people comfortable, and once they get comfortable, they won't make change. Why should we change? I feel good.
oh, that is so true.
As long as you feel good, why should you change? Sometimes talking to white people, educating white people. I don't know what you are, but I know that if you're listening, educate white people. Educating white people is like training mules. When you're training mules, you have to hit them between the ears of the board in order to get their attention. So when I speak in language that is too honest and too truthful and too forthright for folks, I get their attention.
Yes.
I may get them angry, but I get their attention. They haven't really known tension until they've lived next to a hog confinement setup.
Mm.
And they've proven that will increase the tension in your life.
I mean, that's almost like living next to a toxic waste dump,
Well, it is. That is what we're living next to. And it's a toxic waste dump off which makes a lot of money.
Yes, extremely. I mean, listen, we all know that, if we break down the whole pork deal, not only are they making money selling the merchandise there, but the people consuming it on a regular basis is going to end up with, health problems linked to, high pork consumption. So they'll get money on...
This pork isn't staying in this country. This pork is going to China.
All of it? None of it's staying back
This
here?
pork is going to China. So some of it probably... I doubt that the hog confinement setups, which mostly are the hogs and the building are owned by the Chinese.
Mm.
I doubt that pork is sold in this country. I believe it goes to China.
Wow, that's, I know there's a billion people. There's a lot of people to feed, but, when you tie what you're talking about in what is also happening, I believe, up in Michigan with Nestle, basically sucking all the waters out of the Great Lake and sending it to China, we need to be very concerned about what's really going on.
We're being colonized by the Chinese.
Right, but the implications of that, Jane, I feel people are not understanding that. They're not understanding what we're really saying here.
They don't. Their minds are on Trumpy.
Mm.
The things that he's doing, he is distracting all our attention from what we need to be thinking about.
Right.
He will go eventually, but the land remains. And if we had ruined the land, where will we go for food in the future? If we had ruined the land with hog confinements and turkey confinements, and cow confinements aren't the same situation, but it takes more water to raise a hog than it does to raise a person.
Mm.
Yeah, you have no idea what damage is being done to the water table in Iowa with these hog confinements. And these farmers will make their millions and move on and leave the mess for the rest of us to clean up.
Yes.
There won't be enough people to clean up this mess. It's going to take years to clean the mess up that these hog confinements are making in the state of Iowa.
How long have they been operating up there?
It has increased drastically in the last 10 years.
Oh, so they've been there for a minute.
Under Governor Braindead, it increased drastically because he said that they passed legislation that said you can have as many hog confinements as you want to, and I think there are 10,000 more than there ever were before in the last few years, and then 10,000 wild hog confinements.
Oh my God!
Yeah, It is, we're near the tipping point here in Iowa.
I mean,
There's,
I'm sure the local people like yourself are totally, up in arms about this because you're literally on the front line, 2 miles away from one of these facilities. But I just find it so hard to believe that your legislator or your government, don't see the implications of losing their population support. And damn, they're losing
implications, but they see the implications, but they're getting the money from Big Ag.
Mm.
And now we have this ag gag going that says you cannot complain about the situation because you can be sued for it. And you can be arrested if you demonstrate outside a hog confinement setup.
That's messed up. I can't get over that. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that like to protest for various reasons, but, if you aren't one of those people, you need to go up there and see what's going on with these hog farms. Smell the stench firsthand.
This needs to be on, they need to make, if you want to make, Trump loves to make television shows. He should make a television show about hog confinement.
Just drive on
but
up.
He won't do it because there's a lot of money goes into that particular political party from this area because of the money you can make doing something that causes this to become a sacrifice zone. Makes no sense.
I hate that. Every time you say that word, that phrase gives me cringe. A sacrifice zone. Like, who are they to sacrifice any zone?
Well, that's what Big Ag has come up with. Iowa has been declared a sacrifice zone. They're willing to sacrifice the land, the air, the water to animal confinement setups.
So the Chinese can feed their people and get filthy rich. The farmer gets rich, but the common folks get nothing but disease and pestilence.
That's right. That's right. That's what it will amount to if somebody doesn't step up and do something soon. And there are lots of small organizations who are now saying they have to put a stop to it. But in steps Big Ag with all their money, and they put a stop to those who would put a stop to it.
Right.
Yeah, and you talk to the people in North Carolina, and they've had this going for several years. It's been worse than this for several years.
But, once again, when you start messing around with people with money, I guess being sued is one of the least of your worries. These people, make it disappear.
A young man here was killed because he protested several years ago. And they arranged for him not to make it. And they can't prove it. It's one of those unsolved crimes. And it's absolutely, his mother knows what happened, and so did the former sheriff know what happened.
Wow.
And the lid is on. We do not talk about it.
My heart goes out to that family. To know the truth. But unfortunately, the people who have the power, are basically you're in opposition to that. They're not going to get any justice or anything until maybe later.
My heart goes out to the children who are being raised in this situation.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And to the young people who would like to ride down these creeks, and to the people who would like to have their well decent enough for them to drink the water out of it. Many of our wells are now contaminated, so you buy water from town. You buy bottled water because you don't dare let your infants drink the water out of your family well.
Does it have a sulfur smell to it as well? A fecal smell?
It has a flavor and an odor that on some of these farms, the odor and the flavor is such that you don't want to hang up your clothes. You don't want to wash your clothes in it. And there are several farmers' wives who said, I can't hang my clothes up outdoors because they come in smelling like hog manure.
Nasty as hell.
Yeah. It's nasty. It's nasty, but it makes money.
Yeah, and that's all that matters, Jane. At the end of the day, as long as we can stack the Benjamins, to hell with the environment, to hell with the people, blah, 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 blah. That is like as evil could be.
It's like we have a problem of racism in Iowa. We also have a problem of non-careism. What we care about, the only color that really matters here to some people is green, which is the color of our money.
Right.
It was never like that many years ago. That just was why the farmers that I knew years ago wouldn't have dreamed of creating a situation like this, because their fathers, their grandfathers, their great-grandfathers had lived on that land, and they wanted their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren to live on that land. But it isn't that way anymore because now our land is being polluted by this ugliness of these animal confinement setups. And it's making it impossible for the younger generation, number one, to be able to afford to buy that farm and to raise their children next to those hog confinements.
Well, you wouldn't. I mean, I'm sure that this is having some sort of, and we probably can't measure it now, but some sort of psychological effect on like the toddlers and all that. Some sort of developmental effect.
That's what it says in this article from the Des Moines Register, that it's people who live next to these confinements suffer depression, they suffer anxiety, they suffer, it's not just physical, it's mental.
Well, yeah.
It's mental problems because of living next door to a sewage plant.
Right. We're not designed to live in filth. Humans are not designed to live in filth.
No, our bodies don't sort that out. We aren't. Maybe 5 generations down the line, human bodies will have adapted to this. I suppose we could look forward to that. I'm not going to be here 5 generations down the line, so I want something done about it while I'm alive.
Exactly. I mean, come on. In the way you're describing, you almost have to wear a gas mask just to go out to get your mail.
Not a joke. That's really not a joke.
So, what about the higher the people in higher education? Are any of them, actively engaged in this, or do they just?
They write articles. People at the university have written from the University of Iowa write articles about it all the time, and Big Ag can buy off anything, any complaint. Big Ag can buy it off.
Wow. So he suppresses with dollars.
Yeah, money talks and the rest of it walks.
It surely does. And let's face it, it almost seems like our whole country is now up for wholesale. Seriously, there's so many issues going on around the country locally. From the homeless epidemic to the heroin epidemic, to the racial divide. Now the fecal, basically this contamination. It's just and correct me if I'm wrong. Some of that fecal material is actually sprayed on to crops as fertilizer.
Well, you see, that's one of the things they do. They entice those who don't have hog confinements or cow or turkey confinements on their property to allow them, those who do have those confinements, to spray that excrement on the crops because it's cheaper than fertilizer. The problem is it has all those antibiotics in it that you fed to those hogs, and it will go through the topsoil and into the limestone and into the water. So if that happens with fertilizer, it's a whole different thing. Fertilizer, as I understand it, doesn't contain antibiotics.
No, but it does contain
whole different thing that we're
glyphosate.
putting on these crops now. And the farmers who allow them to put it on their crops make money because they're allowing them to put it on their crops, and it's saving them money on fertilizer. The only problem is it's bad for everybody else.
Yes. That's probably why we got E. coli outbreaks in lettuce. Lettuce doesn't, shouldn't have salmonella in it naturally or anything like that. But if you're spraying this crap on it, literally,
no, they aren't spraying it on the lettuce. They aren't spraying it on the lettuce. They're spraying it on the land. That's a different situation that you've got with the lettuce. They're spraying it on the land. Obviously, what's on the land goes into the plant. But this is scary stuff that's going into plants now.
But this is what kills me, though, Jane. The guy who runs that facility, he has family, doesn't he?
I can think of several people I'd like to have come out and have a lunch with me. This is going to kill you. I'm really upset by what we're doing to one another.
Well, yeah, but that goes along with our whole unempathetic society we kind of live in. We kind of live in a society that don't give a damn. As long as I got my money, you better have yours.
I think there are lots of people who do give a damn, but who, until we unite, we're liable to have a food revolution in this country before long.
Yeah,
because people are going to want food that's fit to eat and it's raised in a decent environment.
Right.
We need a food revolution, and we need an education revolution. We need schools that teach the truth. instead of schools that say anything goes. Just pass the test. We need schools that teach the truth.
What about like the masculine and feminine roles in society? Do you think we should re-emphasize that, or just kind of leave it alone?
What?
You know, like men being men. You know, instead of like the effeminization of the males in society that's kind of been happening over the past 20 or so
We'd be
years.
so lucky if some of these men were more feminine. I'm sorry.
Stop, Jane. No, we gotta go the other way. We got too many feminine.
First we gotta get them masculine and before we get them feminine, you know? And it's when many men, not all men, I really like men. Boy, I like men. In their proper place, and I know where it is. But anyway, I think when we convince all these males that they all started out female, then they're going to change their ways. They're going to realize that, wait a minute, fellas, we could have a civilization without you. So straighten out your act and get it done now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
No. Soylent Green is people.
Well, you know, I just, anyway, we better talk about something else quickly.
Yes. One thing, I want to talk about education. As far as the education or the indoctrination that we're getting now, what critical changes could we make in the curriculum to really, you know...
First thing we have to do is get rid of Betsy DeVos.
Okay.
She's the head of the Department of Education, and she knows nothing about education.
Right.
If you're going to have a Department of Education, you need to have it headed by somebody who is educated and who knows something about how people get educated. Not how they get schooled, but how they get educated.
True.
Then we have to rewrite the history books. Immediately. Rewrite the history books so that they are the truth instead of the fantasy.
Yes.
White folk do it in a fantasy. We teach a fantasy for white people, and we teach something very different from fantasy for people of other color groups. We've got to start telling the truth in the history books. But before we do that, we have to teach educators how to teach every child how to read.
Yes.
And we could do that if we decided that we were going to put Orton, Gillingham, phonics in every first, second, and third grade classroom in the United States of America.
How hard do you think that is? It just a money thing, or is it a thing to retrain the teachers as well, or you know?
It's a traditional thing.
Okay.
We have always done it this way, and it worked for my father and my grandfather, so it'll work for me. Well, it didn't work for my father and my grandfather, and the history that we have taught hasn't worked for any of us because it's a lie.
Exactly.
And I've got somebody called me today who is working with people who are out of prison, and they're getting them ready to get into junior college or a community college. But they have to do a whole lot of retraining for them first. Many of them never should have gone into prison.
Because they couldn't.
And within 10 years, one of the reasons that many of them went into prison, marijuana will have been legalized all over the United States. And what are you going to do with all those young black and brown men and women, mostly men, who are in prison because of using marijuana when 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, or in the last 5 months, and then they legalized marijuana? What are you going to do with all those people who are in prison?
Well, you got those private prisons, Jane, and they still have to make a profit.
Oh, sure, we're going to privatize the prison industry, and then we have really made a mess.
And that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
I know it is, and there's a reason for that. There's money to be made in prisons, a lot of money.
Yes.
And if you privatize it, then the federal government can't step in and say, hey, you can't do that to that man or that woman. You need to know you have behavior.
See, this is the stuff that should be on Fox News. This is the stuff that should be on CNN. The real stuff.
Fox News covers this kind of stuff. Fox News feeds on this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Fox
but in the
News
wrong
helps
way.
this kind of stuff to happen. But CNN and all those MSNBC could be talking about things that really matter instead of what comes out of Don Soros T. Rump's mouth.
Yes, it's like his tweets
are... What comes out of his mouth today will be changed tomorrow. So, accent his remarks once a week, and the rest of the time, deal with reality.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is this here. We're going into a situation where advanced manufacturing does not require the human person anymore. We can do more with robots and AIs, some good software. So in other words, like the images of the 30s and 20s, all these factories with men and women shoulder to shoulder, tediously working on whatever, those days are gone. Unless you guys get an education.
I don't think they are gone. All we have to have is the Russians deal with our grid, our energy grid, and you'll find out that you need people to produce that stuff.
Well, yeah, but wouldn't that turn out how the planters and farmers down south here, like in Alabama, once they made that immigration deal and they really got all the illegals out, they ran into a situation where the native people were not fit or capable enough to go out into the fields to actually pick the fruit or whatever off the vine, and all this stuff is going to rot. I mean, the bottom line is the society that we have is not really manually geared. A lot of guys are not manually geared, and I see it a lot on the job site. You get a guy out there and you work him, and he's good from about 7 to about 12, and then all of a sudden after lunch, the guy's no good no more. And these are young guys, like 20s and in their teens. So a lot of guys are just not physically fit anymore.
Well, that's another problem that we would have to deal with, but I can't solve that today. Can you?
No, but I can give a warning though. And this warning,
we could get people up in the morning and have them run around the block a couple times, and they'd be so tired they wouldn't be worth anything up until noon, would they?
No,
I don't. I think we are a quickly weakening society.
Yes, I agree. We're weakening.
Physically, mentally, and emotionally. Marshall McLuhan warned us about this. He warned us about what would happen if we kept on watching television. And we have raised a generation of children who are accustomed to sitting in front of that idiot box.
Right.
Or now we're in worse shape because they can carry it with them in their hand no matter where they go.
With the good old cell phone. Phone.
Yeah, it's just really scary. A nation of children who can only learn with that thing in their hand. I went to a funeral, my sister's funeral yesterday, and here's her daughter taking pictures. Everywhere you look, this woman is standing there taking pictures. And finally, over the gravesite, I said, "Will you please stop taking pictures?"
Wow.
But she was just furious. Well, there are people who don't want to have their pictures taken. Every time you turn around, you're seeing somebody with a camera pointed at you.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of those little cell phones, and you know that they're going to be up on Facebook, and it doesn't matter how you look at them. They have the right to take a picture. We need to change this situation. We need to teach children. If you're going to have something in your hand, and it better be a book.
A book? What's that? I heard about it.
That's right. What's that? Miss Valley, what's that? You don't expect me to read, do you? I got this game, my video game. I can't read. I'm busy doing this. I'm thinking, oh, if you were my child, I'd shake you till your teeth rattle. But instead, I just shake my head and walk away quickly because I hate to be arrested for murder.
But these kids, I think what we're talking about, people need to learn etiquette once again. Public respect. Just because you're in public, like you said, you shouldn't just have that camera just, panning everybody in it.
There were some of us who were mourning that my sister's death.
Yes.
There were others who were taking pictures of it so that they could put it up on the wall later.
That's so uncouth.
This was not that was ugly, and I didn't appreciate it. And life gets tedious, don't it? Well,
yeah.
I go out for dinner. I go out for dinner to a family restaurant. I look over at the next table. There are 3 kids and 2 parents, and each of them has a cell phone in his or her hand.
So everybody's basically separate at the table, even though they're all there. Right. They're all in different psychological zones.
None of them are at that table. They're all inside their own little cell phone in their hand.
Wow. It's sort of like the Matrix. It's sort of like, we become the fantasy. We're so pretendo now. The fantasy's real. It's not my real person. It's that Facebook fiction person that's real.
Yep. It's really scary. Anyway, let's talk about something we can fix.
Yes. And one thing we can fix is the immigration issue. I mean, I don't know your opinion. I don't think I've ever asked you your opinion. or what's your thoughts on the illegal immigration situation in America? And the only reason why I asked this is because a lot of fellow construction guys I work with, they have a lot of issues about illegals basically taking our jobs, underbidding us, undercutting us. So I would like to get your opinion on not just illegals, the people, but if you ever had illegal students in your classroom.
Never consider a student illegal.
Okay.
I may have a student who comes into my classroom who isn't documented, but that doesn't make that kid illegal. That means that kid isn't documented. That means we need to change the situation so that we document them. That means we need to change the situation so it is as easy to come. We need to change the situation so that we have a president who doesn't say, we're going to keep these illegals from coming to America. We're going to build a wall to keep these illegals out of America. Well, you see, everybody who lives from the northernmost point of Canada to the southernmost point of South America is American.
Yes.
Now, you can't keep South Americans and Central Americans are both Americans, along with people in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The 48 contiguous states in the United States and Alaska and Hawaii do not compromise the whole of America. North America, Central America, and South America are all America and filled with Americans. The only way you're going to be able to keep people who aren't Americans out of America is to build a wall around South America, Central America, and North America. Now, that's going to be an expensive enterprise. But think of all the people we could employ if we just decide to build a really important wall and to keep everybody who isn't American out of here. Mm. Do you see how ridiculous this whole thing is?
Yes. And how racially inspired it is.
And if we asked everybody to go back who came here illegally, every white person would have to go back to where they came from. Oh. Because we invaded this country. We white folks invaded this country, and then we white folks dragged black people kicking and screaming here and forced them to work so that we could make money on this land. Mm-hmm. So we came as immigrants, killed off the native inhabitants, or put them on the res.
Right.
And now we're going to keep those other people out. It makes no sense. I think it's interesting that the Statue of Liberty, where it says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, your danger, breathe free. The wretched refuse from your teeming shore, send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. It has pointed to Europe.
Wow. Yes, it is. Nowhere else but to Europe.
Not south and not east.
No.
To Europe.
Yes. And they got another little statue facing it in Europe.
Well, if you go far enough, it's east. But if it's just that Statue of Liberty is to welcome white people.
Mm. Yeah.
It isn't pointed south to welcome Hispanics, Latinos.
No, it's not. So what about reparations? What about things, reparations for the Africans, reparations for the natives?
You give them to Native Americans. First, you have to give them to Native Americans, and when you do that, first you're going to have to give back all those cities that were built on Native American land. You think we're going to go along with that?
well, Palestine did with Israel.
Well, hey, then let's do it, shall we? Israel is such an example of how it works well.
Hold on, Jane. We gotta wait like 3 or 4 generations. I want to enjoy my little bit of a piece of the pie, and then we can give it all back.
Right. You don't want to give up yours.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, don't tax you and don't tax me. Hey, tax that person behind the tree, and you know what that person is.
Yeah.
You heard that one too. Absolutely. Here we are. I got mine, and you get yours when I can get around to allowing it.
Exactly, like when I'm dead and gone.
No. Then my children and grandchildren and great grandchildren have to have it. So you're going to have to wait for 4 or 5 generations. Then it'll be your turn.
Yeah, and they really expect people to wait. They really expect them.
And they do wait because they have been conditioned to the myth of white superiority.
Wow.
We've all been conditioned to that. There are children, and you know it, in this country, like that person I talked to, was it you or was it somebody else that I talked to today? Oh, it was somebody else. It was a person who's working with the homeless and the needy in Nebraska. And one child that he adopted came to live with him because his mother had abused him by trying to scrape the color off his skin.
Ah.
Yes, yes. Every day she worked at trying to scrape the color off her child's skin.
What the hell?
Yeah, what the hell? That kid is living in hell.
Yes, utter.
And yeah. So this is what I mean. I think we have conditioned people to this ugly myth, and it is a myth. It isn't true.
But it becomes
Most
true
people
when
are
people...
not superior. If they were superior, we wouldn't have the problems we're having.
That is so true. That is so true. I mean, most people, seriously, at the end of the day, most people only want their little bit of land. They just want a little money. They want to be able to raise their family the way they see fit, hopefully decent, no craziness. And they really just want to be left alone, and die peacefully in their sleep, at a point in time. Most people don't want to be in the mix. They don't want to be in the drama. That's why they'll just go along to get along. And that's why we're where we're at now, I believe. Too many people have been going along just to get along. And it's time to shake this thing up a bit. Because obviously these corporations don't give a damn about us. They're going to continue to pollute. They're going to continue to debase. They're going to continue to buy our politicians. And they're going to continue to run us dead into the ground. So either we come up with a solution to basically divvy up all the resources on this beautiful planet, or we just kick back and let this train wreck continue to go off the tracks.
So much easier to just sit back and let it happen.
Yes.
Because you can feed your family. But if you can't feed your family, then you have to get up and do something.
Yeah, yes, you do.
But if you're one of the Trumpians, you've made enough, but by various means, you've made enough money that you can sit back and relax and sit behind in your gated community.
Oh, God.
And don't have to worry about what's going on outside.
Well, that's just a beautiful American nightmare. The gated community.
But for some people, that's the dream. Hey, I live in a gated community in the wintertime. I live in an old folks community in the wintertime. And that gate is ridiculous. I watched 3 Hispanic workers climb over it. I stood there. I said, "What are you guys doing?" And they couldn't speak English. I said, "What are you doing? Do you work for somebody in here?" And they turned their back and showed me the sign on their back. And I said, "Oh, okay, you come with me. We need to talk to your boss." So if somebody else had seen them, they'd have called the police. But
Right.
hey, I knew what they were doing. They were going to get back to them on the job. And I found the guy where they were working on this house. And I said, "You need to know that these guys just climbed over the fence." He says, "Oh, no." I said, yes. If somebody else had seen them, they'd have called the police. You need to tell them not to climb over the fence anymore.
Right.
He said, "Oh," and then he turned on me. He just, he started to yell. I said, wait. I didn't tell you to yell at him. I told you to tell him not to yell him. Look, they might have learned their lesson, but just see to it that they know where you are.
Right.
So that they don't have to climb over the fence. And can you imagine a gated community in which you can put a little board up against the wall and climb over it and get into any house in that community? I laugh, and I think, folks, you think you're safe.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the minute they sold a house to me, that they lost their safety.
You Trojan horse them.
They thought I was white, so I'd be all right.
No.
And now it's like,
Go.
oh, Lord, here she comes. She's going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again,
And you do. And that's what's so courageous about you. There's so many people that respect you, Jane. I mean, seriously, there's so many.
Because I'm courageous. It isn't because, let's make something perfectly clear here. It isn't because I'm courageous. It's because other people are scared to death to be confronted. And they'll do anything because what they're thinking, you can't logically support the myth of white superiority. So they're scared to death to say something racist around me because I will not sit back and say, "Oh, I really wish you wouldn't say that." I'm liable to say, "Wait a minute." So when some silly white woman says to me, "I don't see color, I'm colorblind," I say, "I knew that before you said it, because if you weren't colorblind, you wouldn't wear that shirt with those pants." And then they don't say that to me anymore.
They probably avoid you like the plague.
Yeah, they do. They see me coming, and they'll turn their backs and walk anywhere. Deliberately turn around and walk the other direction. I think that saved my having to confront another silly remark.
But see, that's what it is, Jay. You don't allow these people to live in their objective stupidity. You know, you don't allow them to be willfully ignorant. You know, oh, I didn't. It was just a joke.
I'll say, you know what I mean? They said, well, that's not very nice. And they'll say, one woman came up to me, I think that Linda Guillory, when I was working for U.S. West, she just walked up, and she didn't walk up. She did what women who wear high heels that are too high for them do when they try to walk, which is really interesting. And she got up close to Linda Guillory, and she said, Linda, when I see you, I don't see you black. And Linda Guillory is as black as you could be. And when I backed up to that, I thought, oh, I've got to wear this suit tomorrow night. I don't want to get blood stain. And Linda Guillory said to her very nicely, I think you have an eye problem. Let's go down to the optometrist and make an appointment for you so that we can cure that problem you have. That woman diddled away from her faster than she had come up to her. She got away from her just as fast as she could. You don't say to somebody like Linda Guillory, when I see you, I will see you black.
Right.
Because what you're saying, or that people constantly say to me, only once, but there are enough people who keep doing it. When I look at a person, I just look for the person's heart. And I say, wonderful, if you can see my heart from where you're standing, we should go down to the local hospital. You could volunteer to be their x-ray machine. You could save them a lot of money. You know what I mean. I say, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. What you're trying to say is, I want to ignore people's color, because that makes me uncomfortable. And in order for me to be comfortable, I'm just going to pretend that we all have the same heart.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, that's where the conversation becomes uncomfortable.
And when somebody says something like that to me, it becomes uncomfortable immediately, which is one of the many reasons that people don't talk to me unless they absolutely have to.
I mean, that is true. I mean, you're the only guest I've ever had on where it is almost like consistently some sort of major technical problems. I mean, a couple of guests, it gets kind of sketchy. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's what you're saying or the way you're saying it, but the powers that be definitely don't want this message out, for sure.
Happens to me all the time.
And
I know, and when I first started doing this, I would, several weeks after I first did the exercise, and, I was on the Johnny Carson show, and I'd look out my window, and there'd be a man from the telephone company sitting in the ditch fixing one of the cables. Mm-hmm. And I thought, boy, that cable has a lot of problems. And I realized that it wasn't the cable that had the problem. I was the one that had the problem. So then I'd be more careful about what I said.
Well, that reminds me of a story. Dick Gregory used to say, you can tell if your phone's being tapped. All you got to do is stop paying your phone bill and your phone stays on. And he's like, I haven't paid my phone in 20 years. Because...
Good idea.
You don't pay your phone bill and it still works, yes, you're being tapped.
Somebody called me this morning, and she said, well, they said they'd fax it to me. I said, look, one of our problems is that people have become fax machines. What goes into us comes out exactly the way it came into us.
Right.
We don't stop to think about it on the way through. We hear it, and then we repeat it, whether it makes any sense at all.
That is true.
Yeah, we've all become fax machines, particularly in schools. You tell those kids this, they regurgitate it on a test, then they go to high school, they regurgitate it on a test, they go to college, then they go into the classroom to teach, and what came into their ears, K through 8, comes out their mouths to the next group of K through 8 people.
I was just about ready to say that. It seems like during your formative years, you are straight up indoctrinated. Everything has a correct answer. There's no room for discretion or any gray area. It's yay or nay, and we get this type of mental complex to us, I think, and it does carry over in our. That's probably why so many marriages ends in divorce and all that, because people aren't thinking right.
It's perpetuating the white fantasy. It's perpetuating the white male fantasy. And what's worse right now is perpetuating the white male Christian fantasy.
Mm.
And if you haven't read the books by, what's his name? He wrote C Street. Have you read the book C Street by, I think his last name is Charlotte.
No.
C Street and the Family. 2 books. You need to read those books because they are all about what is happening, how the laws that are getting passed in this country are getting passed as a result of Frank Schaeffer's teaching us all to be evangelicals.
Wow.
And then you need to read the Frank Schaeffer book, Patience with God, because he brought the evangelical business to this country, and now he's saying, get away from it as fast as you can. It has been distorted to the point where it has no resemblance to true Christianity anymore.
Mm. Well, it makes sense. I mean, you use the word business. You know, the evangelical business. And it is a business. You know, I mean, when you sit there and say, God loves me, I'm rich, and he doesn't love you, you're poor, come on. Something's wrong right
well, worse
there.
than that, we'll say, you're poor because God doesn't love you.
Yeah.
You're poor because you aren't using your talents well enough. And then if you, as a black person, use your talents very well and become president of the United States, we have somebody like Mitch McConnell who says you'll never be successful. First he said you'll never get elected. Then he said he'll never be successful. Then he said he'll never get reelected. He did. Then he said he'll never be successful. And now we're saying, look at the things that Barack Obama didn't get done. it's like, see how good we were at making him not be successful? Isn't it wonderful?
Exactly. Everything's reinforcing itself from beginning to end.
Yes. Yes. That stuff comes back to bite you.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is.
And that's another thing. What goes around most certainly will come around.
Yeah, that's what my dad used to say. He also used to say, a man is judged by the company he keeps, and the best of companies none too good.
Mm.
And you look at the people who are running this country right now, the best of companies none too good.
No. I mean, I'll say it on the record again for those who might be new to the show. Donald Trump President Trump is a closer. That's what he does. He closes out. What businessman brags, Jane? I went bankrupt 5 times. That's not a monocle of success there. I think this country's going down, and they got the closer in office.
No, I don't think he's a closer. I think he's a person who has no adult ego state.
Mm.
He has a child ego state and a parent ego state. He has no adult ego state. My father would say he's a boy grown tall. He has never grown into adulthood. He is spoiled rotten, and he wants what he wants. And he wants it right now.
He gets it. He gets it though.
And he gets it by very nefarious means. But it doesn't occur to him that there will be a time when you have to settle up.
Yes.
We're in scary times. But anyway, what else would you like me not to say?
Okay. Now this is a weird oddball question. Do you believe in aliens? Do you believe in life outside of Earth?
Well, I think I see them all the time. So, I think that I believe in aliens. I believe that there are aliens among us.
Well, I mean, okay, I want to be a little. Do you believe in the Star Trek version of aliens, or more of a metaphysical, concept? There's alien bacteria and things of that nature.
I think that as many planets as there are, and as many bodies in space as there are, if you think that only one of those bodies in space produced intelligent beings, you aren't an intelligent being.
Well, I always like to akin, like back in the old days, where everyone claimed the Earth was flat. Like we're in some sort of mindset like that when it comes to aliens. Like we're just on this little, this little continent. There's, you go sailing off on the ocean, you fall off. It's like then they find out there's a whole new continent on that side of the world. It's like the more we learn.
But while white folks were discovering that, black people had already done all that discovering because that's the only reason there are white people.
Explain. Could you explain that for the listeners?
Black people had modern human beings evolved in sub-Saharan Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Now they traveled, and their skin was very dark because they're exposed to immense amounts of sunlight, and so their bodies produced a lot of melanin to protect themselves from the damaging rays of the sun. Those bright, those smart, those creative, those curious people moved from sub-Saharan Africa all over the world. And as they moved across the world, they crossed the oceans, they crossed the rivers, they crossed the deserts, and they moved to every landmass on the face of the earth. But they all came from the same place.
Right.
And as they moved farther and farther from the equator, their skin got lighter and lighter because they're exposed to less and less sunlight. So if those brilliant black people hadn't decided to move, hadn't decided to immigrate, and no emigrate, there would be no white people.
Oh my gosh. So take that for illegal immigration.
Yeah, I just think people be grateful for people who want to move to a better place.
Yes, that's a part of everyone's right.
That's what allowed those of us, and I want it to be a requirement. In order to get into high school, you have to have a DNA test done. So that when you get into high school, you'll find out that every one of you came from a country in Africa. When you go back far enough, you're in your DNA.
Right.
There's going to be black in your DNA no matter where you are from. So I want that to be one of the requirements to get into high school, so that you go into high school knowing that you're all cousins. 30th to 50th cousins.
And that's the beautiful thing about, when you get past those whole concepts of race and all this, not taking away from the person itself, that's when you really realize it's all BS. It's all been doctored to like even the Christian story of Adam and Eve. You have Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve, I love the Adam and Eve story. It proves my point.
I know, from our last conversation.
That's one of my favorite stories.
Do you want to tell it for the listeners, for those who might not have heard it?
If the creation story is true, the first man was made out of dust, and dust in the Garden of Eden had to be made out of rotted palm fronds. When vegetation rots, it turns and sits for a while, it turns very, very dark or black.
Right.
So the first man on earth, according to the creation story, was undoubtedly a black man. The first woman was made out of Adam's rib. All bone tissue is white because it's made of calcium. Therefore, the first woman was white, the first man was black, the first couple that God created was a black man and a white woman. How do you like me now?
Oh my God, you better not go. You better not go down in one of these little podunk towns with that. Boy, they wouldn't even let you out.
Well, I think I'll run for the presidency on that platform.
Because so many people, it cracks me up when we really start looking at this thing that we're dealing with. They just recently passed a law, it was 2 weeks ago, on the federal level, saying that now, once again, redlining is okay. You can charge black people more for loans and insurance and all this.
Right.
All right? No one's talking about that.
Just this week, our brilliant governor signed a bill saying that we are now outlawing abortion in Iowa.
Wow.
Now, if she had started that before our last governor was born, things would be very different here.
Well, maybe you can do a retro abortion.
We could, I think abortion ought to be made retroactive in some cases.
The thing about it though is once you said the Christian male white supremacy theory, the whole, we have these laws on religious foundations, right? But if we find that through archaeology or through critical thinking, some of these religious premises are false, then don't we have a moral obligation to change the laws tied to that?
What we first have to do is read the book, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, and find out that there was spirituality several thousand years before the birth of Jesus Christ. We have to read that book and watch that thing. The man, his name is Anthony Browder, I believe, and he was an archaeologist, among other things, and he has written these beautiful books about what it was really like. Now, if people don't want to go to all the work of reading that fantastic material, they need to get the April issue of the National Geographic magazine, which is about race. And on the cover of that magazine are twin girls, one black and one white, and they are twins. You have to read that magazine. Everybody should be required to read that magazine because it tells the truth about the myth of race. It's absolutely beautiful.
But then what will our hating friends have to fall back on? Their pack of lies and deception, with the truth shining on it, they have nothing to stand on. Kind of pathetic.
Well, it is so. I don't think white people, for the most part, we white people don't really know how it feels to be free.
Mm.
When you walk down the street and you see 3 or 4 young black males coming toward you, and you think, there are some of my cousins, aren't they great?
That's freedom.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, they really are. Oh my goodness, here we are, members of the family of man.
Yes. The beautiful
started
family
with a
of
woman.
man. You know,
What started with a woman.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, have a family of man without women. You can have a family of women without a man. You know that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
They have put 2 female cells together in a petri dish, break down the cell wall, and come up with another female mammal. They've been doing it for years just to prove that you could. Now,
could that
I would
occur naturally in nature?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And that's the way it occurred in the beginning. In the beginning, there were nothing but females. And then as a result of a mutation in the genes, the first male was born. So you have to remember, and I remember this a lot, when I'm talking to a male, I remember that I'm talking to a mutant, and I don't get too upset.
Mutant. Oh my God. Now, thank you. Thank you for being so kind and patient.
Hey, I never told you I was kind.
I'm talking to a mutant.
I'm kind of strange, but not strangely kind. I'm kind of strange, but I'm not strangely kind. I realize that.
I love it the way you say it because it makes so much sense. There's no guesswork. There's no spookiness. There's no mystery. It's just logic and sense. And that's very scary.
There's no gentleness. I'm not gentle. Somebody said just in the newspaper, in my local newspaper last week, that I am too blunt and I am too brusque. I am brutally frank, and I think, okay.
What, they prefer you to be a scalpel instead of a battle axe?
Or they want that. Yeah, that's right. No, they don't want a scalpel either.
Oh.
They want a Q-tip.
Oh God.
They want me to be a Q-tip. And the Q-tip, you can soak up ugly things with it, and then you throw it away.
Oh, that's a horrible way of looking at it.
No, they don't want me to scalpel or a battle axe. They want me to be a Q-tip. Sorry about that.
To soak it up and throw it away. Wow.
That's right.
Well, they picked the
Soak
wrong
it up
one.
and throw it away.
They picked the wrong one.
Well, anyway, are we done now?
Yeah, I guess we are. We went an hour. Basically, that's the show. I mean, I would like to have you on absolutely later on this year.
Well, if you still have any listeners after this, give me a call.
I most certainly will, Jane.
Okay, all right. Thanks for listening.
You're welcome, and thank you for sharing.
Okay, all right. We'll talk to you another time.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.
Awesome, guys. Jane Elliott on the line with us today on Special Report. Even though I did have some happening over here on YouTube, I got a camera over here off to the side. I got all of the footage. I will upload this one if this one's not right. Once again, I'd like to thank the folks at APM Construction for sponsoring the show. Please give them a call at area code 314-300